What's going on, guys? Jason here, Mixology. We're finally getting to it. A bunch of you people have asked for it, and I'm in the position now where I'm about out of space and need to do it anyway. We're gonna build some racks. So let's head out to the garage. I'll explain what we've got. I'll put a cut list up. I'll show you guys the whole thing, just like when we did the rat racks. I'm not gonna leave anything out if I can help it. And let's get this rack done, because I need the space. Basically, this is what we're making. For those of you who don't know, it looks maybe a little bit different than the way it is in the snake room, because it's got that 3 high on top of it, which is just a half size of one of these. But yeah, that's what we're making. This is how we're doing it. So basically, is what we've got here is 2 4-foot by 8-foot sheets of 3/4 inch melamine. Now look, I understand all of the issues with melamine, and if you can either afford, choose to, or can even get PVC where you're doing this build or any build similar, do it. It's definitely better. It will last you significantly longer. It doesn't weigh nearly as much. It's better in every way. But I cannot get PVC up here. It runs about 140 bucks a sheet for 1/2 inch if you can even get it ordered. So it's just not cost effective at that point. And since we're DIY, I can't afford or justify spending hundreds and hundreds or thousands of dollars on commercially made PVC racks yet. As the collection grows, as we proceed through a season or two, we might go down that road just to get to more stability, get some more stuff that'll last longer, but just not for right now. So for now, melamine. This stuff weighs a ton. The edges are wicked sharp when they're cut, so be careful with that. Basically, is what I had is I went to Lowe's. I have a build sheet. I'll put that up right here. A cut list, rather. There's a cut list there. And I'll have all this stuff in the description and on the website to download the cut list. But basically, all I do is I go to Lowe's, I pick up the 2 sheets of melamine, and then based on that cut list, there's pretty simple spots where you can cut each sheet into 6 or 8 pieces or whatever. Just rough cut, because I like to cut my own at home on a finer tooth blade anyway, and it makes it a lot easier to transport it. Those big 4x8 sheets are real heavy, so 2 4x8 sheets of 3/4 inch melamine, rough cut. I'm going to cut them all down, and then I think there's 15 feet, if I remember correctly. Like I said, it'll all be in the description. 15 feet of 4-inch. Yeah, 4-inch heat tape from Reptile Basics, the THG heat tape. So yeah, so we're basically gonna go. I'm gonna put you guys on time lapse for the majority of this. I'll stop through every, when we get to the next major step, like I did in the wrap breeder rack, and explain what we're doing. I'm gonna cut all these pieces down to what I need, starting with the shelves. The shelves are 18 by 24 exactly, and you need 7 of them, 6 levels and a top. So I'm gonna do those. I'm gonna do the 2 sides, the back, and the base. The whole thing sits on a base, so you can put wheels on it. It's real sturdy. So I'm gonna rip through those real quick, then we'll come back and I'll show you how I start assembling it. Alright guys, so we got everything cut up. We got a stack of shelves here, some sides, the other pieces are over there. I just recognized that what I told you earlier is actually incorrect. The heat tape that I had in my hand is not for this build. That 6-inch heat tape, that's what I use at the back of my 10 high Freedom Breeder 40 rack, which we are going to build. I forgot I ordered that as an extra to finish the next 10 high 40 rack. So turns out I don't have the 4-inch heat tape that I need for this rack. So I'm gonna have to get that ordered, and so there'll be a weird jump cut in here eventually when that comes in, that we can put it in. In the meantime, I can go ahead and do the next couple of steps so that everything's done. All I gotta do is put the heat tape in. Basically, the next big thing I need to do is on these shelves at the back half, I need to route out an edge, or route out a channel for the 4-inch heat tape to sit in. And the reason I do that is because I have a router and I know how to do it, and that way I can just let the tubs sit flat on here and not touch the heat tape. You do not want the tub touching the heat tape because it can cause major issues or possibly fires down the road. If you do not have a router, you'll have to alter your spacing on the shelves just a little bit, but you might actually be able to get away with it with this spacing if you used maybe like 1/8 inch. Use like 1/8 inch stock, 1/8 inch sheet, something like that, and made little strips that went front to back just up until the heat tape. So you could slide on those and still have the tub sitting just slightly above it. You might have enough room with this measurement, but I don't know if you'll be able to put the lids on inside if you ever need to for whatever reason. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and route these out. I'll do the time lapse for that, and then we'll go ahead and start pre-drilling all of the sides to hold the shelves, and that's what these are for. I have guides for the spacing so that it gets the same spacing every time. So let me go ahead and route out 6 shelves. There's 7 of them here in total. One top and 6 shelves. Obviously the top doesn't need a channel routed out of it. I've made that mistake before. Oh, and real quick, where I'm gonna do it, like I said, it's 4-inch heat tape, and I'm gonna offset it 2.5 inches forward from the back edge. So it's gonna sit about right here. And the reason for that is so that the heat's not all the way against the back edge of the tub. The snakes can get behind the heat if they want, so on and so forth. So. This channel, like I said, this is for 4-inch heat tape with a 2.5 inch offset from the back edge. Like I don't have the heat tape unfortunately, so I'm gonna get that ordered. It does not need to be perfect. Obviously you can see some real small ridges, but basically this is all you're trying to do is make sure that you end up with a very slight, there we go, a very slight lip at the edge. And that'll give plenty of room for the heat tape to sit down inside of. You might also notice on these, it looks like on every other one, there's like this round over area. I do that so that when you come up the side of the rack with the heat tape and then turn it and bend it over onto the new shelf, it's just got a really nice smooth round corner to go across. That way you don't get any weird pinching or folding or whatever. So yeah, it just comes up nice and smooth, rolls over, but it's obviously every other one because the heat tape S's all the way to the top, and I start at the bottom and S from there up. So the right side of the first shelf, left side of the second shelf, and so forth all the way up. So that's why it looks like that. But anyway, all right, so what we're gonna do now is start working on getting these shelves put into one of the sides. We'll do one side and then flip it over and do the other. I've got my spacers. I'll put the measurements for those right here. Obviously this area space, this is between the shelves, you know, top and bottom and such. I always cut my sides a little bit long because inevitably the table saw or whatever is not perfectly square, and occasionally you'll have a weird line at the end. So I cut a little bit long, and then when I get all done, I'll go through with the router and the flush cut bit, and I'll make it all nice and even. So what I'm gonna do is, best bet here to start is put lines on the shelf or on the side rather, where the shelves are gonna go. So I have extra pieces of 3/4 MDF, and basically is what I'll do, let's say I'm gonna use this as the top because it's in frame. I'll go ahead and I'll line up on the top here and use a square on my bench, and I'll line it up so it's nice and flush at the top, basically. And then I'll draw this line all the way down. And then while that piece is sitting there, I'll put my spacer in, like so, and then I can mark where the spacer goes, and then put the piece down and draw the next set of lines. And basically you want to draw the 2 lines, one on either side of what would be the shelf. So then we can go back and measure and put screws in, or a pre-drill rather, where the screws are gonna go. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna start, I start at the top and work down. You can start at the bottom, work up, it doesn't matter. You're gonna trim it all when you're done anyway. I'm gonna start at the top and work down. And so in this case, there's 7 pieces, obviously, the top, and then 6 shelves. And the last shelf should be pretty close to the very end of the side. So let's do that. We'll come back and I'll start pre-drilling and we'll get this thing done. Okay, so all of those are lined up. I don't know if you can see in the camera here. Got the lines drawn at every shelf now. So you saw I probably did it a little bit different than I said originally. I didn't use the square because I don't need to. This is just a trim piece from cutting this stuff down, so it's still straight. You gotta make sure it's straight, obviously, but it's plenty long enough, as you saw, to just set it up. And then since we know that these are 6.5 inches lengthwise, once you saw once I did the line, I can measure 6.5 inches, then put the board up and trace it and go all the way down. It is a little bit long on the end, which I expected. That one's even more so. That one's probably about 4 inches longer at the end because I just never cut it down. No big deal. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna measure across at the lines, and I'm gonna put a mark in the center all the way on each one, and then one about maybe an inch, inch and a half in from the edge at each level on both sides. So there'll be 3 screws per shelf. And then, all right, before I show the next clip of measuring these out to drill them and that, I just want to show you what this thing does. For those of you that don't know, I actually don't know what this tool is called. It's just a corner clamp. But this is basically how I'm gonna do this. So you just take this, you set your shelves up together, obviously, and they don't have to be perfectly straight or square. This thing does it for you. So it goes just like that and down inside. And then as you're tightening it, you can come around like here and close up the gaps, make sure it's flush and smooth and even. You tighten it up a little bit, check and make sure it's even. That's the biggest area right there, as you'll see it, which is nice because you can see where it's open, obviously. So we'll tighten that up. Now down here, there isn't one, obviously, because it's sitting on the table, so it can move a little bit. So is what I'll do when I go to screw this one in, is I'll make sure it's straight, you know, and then just hold it in place. But once you get that where you want it, and make sure that the gaps and everything are good, give it a good tighten, and now it's all solid. And you have this gap right here where your line is, that you can go in and put your screws where you have them marked all the way down. Super cool tool. And I've got 2 of them, so you'll see as I go along here that I'll leave this shelf in place so that I can put the block like so, lay the next shelf up and bolt it in place. So really cool tool, just wanted to show you that real quick. All right, well, somehow I managed to measure incorrectly. It does happen. I don't know what's wrong. I do know that my table saw is not 100% perfectly square, so that can cause the issue sometimes. You know, if I started up here and, you know, this was all flush, but this is not square, obviously from here all the way down, it's not gonna work right. And as you can see, if you look at where some of these holes are as compared even way down to this one, I had the same problem on the other side. Obviously something didn't line up right, but that is the importance of these jigs, and that's why I use these, is so that you know for a fact that what you're doing is working despite what the lines tell you. So these are all, you know, nice and snug, top and bottom on both sides. Well, it's a couple days later, but good news is heat tape's in, and this is the right size finally. So 4-inch heat tape. I think I order 16 feet at a time to do a 6-high rack. Big step next that we got to do. This part is not required, but I do it because I think it looks a lot better, and in a room with more humidity and water and stuff like that, I think it'll last. The racks will last a lot longer, and that is covering all of these raw edges. Now this is actually the back, so the back itself will cover these. I'll have to trim the back around, obviously, but trimming all of these raw edges, these pieces, the fronts of the shelves, the fronts of the top edges on the sides, trimming all that stuff. So for that I use this edge banding. This big roll, it was like 50 feet, 75 feet, something like that. I bought on Amazon. Originally I was buying all of the iron-on tape at Home Depot and Lowe's, but it just started to get too expensive to buy it in small packages, so I ended up buying in bulk, and it works out a lot better. Well, I screwed up. Apparently I didn't push the right button on the camera, so the time lapse for doing the edge tape on the shelves and that doesn't exist, which is why we're here now. But I will show you anyway what we ended up doing. So you can see here on the shelves, the front edges are all edge tape now. Basically this is just done with an iron. I use my clothes iron at home. No steam, high heat, and it just melts it on and sticks it, and I just cut it off flush at the ends. I do the shelves while they're out so I can get the perfect edge on them. And then I did the base, obviously the bottom shelf, the base all the way around. You'll notice that the sides are not done yet, and the reason being is I have to do up the front and across the top. So I'll do that after the whole thing is framed up. And then I got over here the couple back pieces. This is just, the back pieces are made from scrap in this case because I screwed up and cut the wrong one. I had a piece left over that was going to be a 1-piece back like I normally make, and I screwed up and cut it to make the base. So, oh well, it's just a back. It's just so I can not push the tubs all the way out the other side, and so it keeps heat, especially in the back over the heat tape, keeps it enclosed. So what we're going to do now is start the heat tape. This part is just kind of tedious. It's pretty easy, but it's just kind of tedious. Basically is what we're going to do here is I start at the bottom and work up, and you see here on shelf 5 that it is beveled on the right edge over here. So is what that tells me is I'm going to start on this side, the left edge, and I'm going to go across, staple it down. Usually I staple it at the ends, in the middle, and then I'll do between the black lines. So you can staple anywhere on here that is clear, is the best recommendation. So I'll staple in the edges on the clear and between the black lines on the clear. So we'll start here, we'll work it across to the other side, and then as I pull it up the side, I'll put the other shelf in, screw it in, let the tape just kind of drape over the top, which now obviously it'll be upside down, but it doesn't matter. And then we'll start stapling that side down, and we'll do the same all the way up. Well, after a couple more days, a haircut, and another wardrobe change, we're ready to finally button this thing up. So, a couple things I did off camera while we were waiting. I went ahead and finished edge taping the sides and the base. Got the heat tape all run and everywhere, all the levels. Drilled the hole in the back for the probe. The last step really, because I've got the top all up and ready to go as well, the last step really is to solder. I solder my extension cords directly to the tape. I don't use the rivets or anything. While we wait for the soldering iron to warm up here, I'm going to go ahead and prep the cable. Like I said, again, just a basic 6-foot extension cord from Home Depot in this case. So I'm just going to cut the end off. Don't need that anymore. So now, it does not matter on this stuff. You'll notice that these wires, I don't know if it's going to pick up on the camera, but one wire is smooth all the way around. The other wire has these ridges. It's tied to one prong being larger than the other. That's specifically for polarized stuff. This is not polarity specific, so it does not matter at all what side you put on which side here, because these are obviously the same. So what we're going to do is, and this is why I left this loose instead of stapling it, is I'm literally going to take the soldering iron here and melt the plastic that's on top of the copper here. Probably wise to use safety goggles and a respirator with this. It's obviously, melting plastic is not good for anybody, and it does smell really bad. Alright, so that one's melted through as well. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these and I'm just going to get a little bit of solder on them. Okay, just like that. And then I'm going to melt a little bit of solder into these little pools I made here. Alright, and there's the other one. And now this step is super important. This is how you prevent shorts and causing a fire, especially since you just built a wood rack. You don't want a fire, obviously. Scotch brand black electrical tape in particular. I'm going to go across. It doesn't matter if it's over the heating element, because these don't get hot enough to hurt the tape. So we're going to go across to the back on that side. Across to the back on the other. And there you have it. We have a soldered lead, extension lead on our tape. It's insulated well, we don't have to worry about that. We can go ahead and staple this back into the base here. I've already drilled the hole in the back for the cord to go through, so we can feed that through there. This will obviously plug into the thermostat that will be sitting on top of the rack. It'll sit up here. Every rack or tub or enclosure that you have with any kind of heating source should absolutely be on a thermostat regardless. I'm going to go ahead and put the staples in, put the top on, get some tubs, and we'll finish this video out. Well, there you go, guys. 6 high, 1532 combo is what I call it. Obviously, 2 15 quarts or 132 per shelf. Recessed heat tape in the back for belly heat, fully enclosed, keeps a nice ambient temperature in the tub all the way around. It may not be the most beautiful thing, and it's not obviously as robust as plastic, and it weighs a lot, that's for sure. But it'll definitely serve as the first, couple of years of your keeping or breeding plans, and obviously very expandable. I have the ones in the snake room with 3 more on top, and so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, like and subscribe, of course. Put comments down below if you have any questions, concerns, input, suggestions. I'm always open to seeing other opportunity or other ideas. And tag me in your stuff on social media. at Morph Mixology, hashtag Martini Snake. When you build your racks, let's see it. I'm always open. I'm always excited to see what you guys come up with based around our videos. So I think that'll do it for us this week, guys. And we'll see you guys next week with the next project. See ya.